Hi friends, pack your apple juice and hiking boots, we're going on a safari. Today we're going to look at all the fun, silly little Tau auxiliaries. One of the coolest aspects of the Tau are their auxiliary species. Unlike pretty much every other 40k faction, the Tau aren't mega on-site racists, so they actually do recruit other species to their empire. So today I'll go through them, give a brief little description, and then to spice things up, I'll assign these species high school cliches and stereotypes based on their traits or quirks. As an example, I'll quickly put the Tau cast into stereotypes. Firecast, jocks. Watercast, cute popular girls. Earthcast, nerds. Aircast, the cool mysterious kid. And then finally, the ethereals would be TikTok, since they appeared seemingly out of nowhere and probably mind control the four other casts. Oh, and one more thing before we start, I just want to say that some of these species don't have that much lore, but I will say as much as I can, and I might also have to imagine what some of these look like, so half this video will kind of just be me making fan art, I guess. But that being said, let's start off with the best auxiliary in the Tau Empire. These dudes are often seen as zealous, somewhat barbaric, but otherwise able to operate the advanced Tau tech, making them very useful allies to the Empire. And you might have guessed it, but this is Guvesa, or the human helpers of the Tau. That's right, human supremacy, baby. Even in the Tau, humans are supreme. Suck it, Xeno scum! The Guvesa are just Imperials that the Tau recruited, be it wayward guardsmen, deserters, or just Imperial citizens who were abandoned after lost battles. These humans, they swap their zeal for the Emperor for zeal for the greater good. And Tau reception of human, it kind of varies. Some trust them and like them quite a bit, while others fear that they're too zealous, too barbaric, and too dangerous. Too zealous and dangerous? Sure. But some of the Tau forces, they decided, we aren't 40k enough as a faction. So why don't we sterilize and forcefully re-educate these humans? That'll put us on the list. And here's some fun little facts about the Guvesa. Number one, some of them are actually allowed to continue to worship the Emperor, as long as they continue to serve the greater good. And this is somewhat of a common trend among the auxiliaries, as the Tau Empire allows the species to keep their side hoes as long as the greater good is their main bay. And then, fact number two, some Guvesa, they actually shave their head and wear blue face in order to integrate themselves into the Tau society and ingratiate themselves with the Tau commanders. And then finally, this one's super cute, but I'm not entirely sure it's true since I only saw it one time. But Guvesa squads are apparently called clusters, and in these clusters, they refer to their squad mates with a number and then friends. So just like imagine them about to get eaten by some Dark Eldar or something horrible, and they're just like, "Oh, sixth friend, we're gonna die! Rip!" Also, I guess that would mean a Guvesa orgy would be called a clusterfuck. So with all that, I would say the Guvesa they're kind of like the transfer kid that's really outgoing and most people like, but low-key, people are kind of worried he might start a fight at any moment. He loves his new school, but he's also still a little bit too much into his old school's football teams for some people's tastes. Next up, let's talk about something similar to humans. The Demiurge are just Vote's hand that the Tau misidentified. They're primarily traitors to the Tau Empire rather than true warriors. They also have some advanced technologies that they share with the Tau Empire. As dwarves, these technologies are mostly related to mining, manufacturing, and that SpongeBob long, tall, and handsome machine. The Demiurge are that kid who's like a little bit weird, he's short, he's awkward, but he sells everybody fidget spinners or whatever the kids are into now. And like these dudes are nerds. They're probably in the robotics club with the Earthcast, but the cool kids like him because he sells them the vapes. But speaking of manufacturing, another species that works with the Earthcast to manufacture weapons and ships is the Greet. The Greet are an invertebrate species that hail from an ocean world. On their home world, the Tau built floating factories, kind of like the Camoans, I would imagine. The Greet, they were annexed into the Empire because of their manufacturing capabilities, and they made vessels called line ships and stealthers. The line ships had slipstream FTL capabilities, but no warp protection, so the Greek crews were promptly, brutally murdered by demons. So kids, always remember to use protection when entering, wormholes. And again, these dudes would totally be nerds. However, these ones would definitely get bullied for being spineless little weirdos who most likely smell like fish. So tangentially related to manufacturing, a lot of auxiliaries are pretty much only notable for their ships or void navigation capabilities. So I'll quickly cover those. First off, the Ostens Council is a group of various species that serve as mercenaries for the Tau. They make ships called winged discs, which honestly sounds a lot like a semicircle to me, but who am I to say? And these guys, they're once again probably nerds, but they do have their own little nerd group, so the other kids low-key think they're kind of cool. Then the Normati would be another species that not much is known about other than their use of worm ships. And honestly, I don't know that much about these guys, but based on what I could find, I'll just say they're that weird little kid who's like looking for worms and shit in the quad planters. Next up, Geatrix are an allied species that's notable for their navigation and skills with space travel. The Geatrix would be like that kid who got their driver's license early and are by default one of the cool kids. But also, everybody wants them to take them places, so you win some, you dim some. Next up, related to spaceships and space travel, the Nikasar are a species who love to travel across the void, and they make the Tau some scout ships. They were also the first species added to the Tau Empire. And the Nikasar, they're pretty cool since they're literally psychic space bears. They're described as having Earth sign appearance, and along with that, they have quills, stubby little limbs, avian skulls, and no eyes. They're physically weak, but they make up with that with their psyker abilities, which is very helpful to the Tau since they themselves do not have psyker abilities. And this highlights one of the cool aspects of the Auxiliaries. The various species help bolster the Tau Empire and fill in the Tau's weaknesses. Furthermore, due to their psychic abilities, the Tau Empire tries to keep them hidden from the Imperium of Man. Also, fun cute fact, they float around in magic space bubbles. The Nikasar are definitely nerdy, awkward weirdos, but luckily for them, they were friends with the cool kids long before high school, so they kind of get their protection. Think 2002 Peter Parker and Harry Osborn. Now, another weakness of the Tau that is filled in by auxiliary species would be their infamously bad melee abilities. So, like those horrible loser IRL streamers, the Tau bring some muscle in case they ever get into a fist fight. And these next few species, they would all definitely be on the football team and would probably beat you up. The most well-known of these melee species is the kroot, and honestly these bird dudes could have a video of their own, they're very cool, but the general gist of them is that they're a species of tall, powerful avian hunters. Along with being proficient melee fighters, the kroot are known for their ability to alter their physiology by eating species and inheriting their genetic traits. The leaders of the kroot are called shapers, and they try to shape their peers and make sure that they inherit traits beneficial to the species, don't hit evolutionary dead ends, and don't eat forbidden species like tyrannids. With their Kirby-like ability, they've gained things like psychic abilities from Eldar, muscle mass and greenness from orcs, and my favorite, issues with authority and a penchant for red bandanas from the Catachan. The various critters that the Kroot work with, like the Kroot Hounds or Krootoks, they're actually Kroot that hit evolutionary dead ends. Since their mutation caused them to lose too much intelligence and sentience, they're basically relegated to helper pets. And then the Kroot, they might be athletic, but they're probably also a weird theater kid who keeps on trying to change his personality. Another species that specialize in melee are the Thraxans, who are bug-like aliens with multiple arms. Other than that, not much is known. And these would just be kind of like those forgettable jocks who hang out with the more popular jocks in movies. Then the Talarian dog soldiers are a reptilian species that look like, you guessed it, cats. Of course, I'm just kidding. They obviously look like dogs. And then for some reason, one of the places I read said that they're known for having knees and ribs. A weird thing to be known for, but I guess at least they got something going for them. Who am I to judge? And another cool thing is that they're said to be obsessed with honor. And also, they apparently almost joined the Red Corsair Renegade Space Marines. But the Marines thought that their stupid little rituals were stupid, and that led to a little altercation that ended up with a bunch of dead dogs and a bunch of angry readers. And these dog soldiers, they would be like that one kid who's super loyal to his friends and will constantly get into fights on their behalf. They'd also be like that kid we all knew who had knees and ribs. You know who I'm talking about. Next up on the slate, the Morelians are a species with soldiers called the Deathsworn who serve as mercenaries. Mostly for the Tau, but they have worked with other things, most notably the Alpha Legion. Other than that, the only thing that seems to really be known is that Dark Eldar particularly like the skin of Morelian kids for robes. So I guess they're Dalmatians of the Tau Auxiliaries. And then this would just be the kid who kind of gets along with everyone, and you're kind of surprised to see what friend groups he'll be in. Also, all the fan art I've seen makes them look like emos, so I guess they're also bald emo kids. Another mercenary faction that helps the Tau, and strangely enough the Alpha Legion, are the Galg. Now these guys are actually quite interesting, and they might be a contender for my top 3 filthy, heretical, and abhorrent, but also kind of cool Tau auxiliary list. And the Galg, they're these weird tentacle aliens that live in underground palace cities. They were a relatively peaceful species that weren't really notable in any way, but they created a utopian society where no one really suffered. Then the Tau came along, and they saw them being perfectly content and were like, that's stupid. You idiots are all too busy living a perfect life to see the greater good and how it can improve your stupid perfect life. And so they conquered the planet, and the Galg quote unquote, happily gave up their perfect lives to find purpose in the greater good. Uh huh. And some Galg, however, they didn't buy into the Tau Blue Kool-Aid, and they became freedom fighters and mercenaries. This faction of Galg are the ones who assisted the Alpha Legion, and they seek to overthrow the Tau and reclaim their way of life. The Galg, they would be like that one dude who's perfectly content with the way he is, and definitely the happiest dude you know. But everybody tells him he's weird, his life sucks, and he should try to do better for himself. He's also probably a stoner. Then these next two, unlike the Galg, don't really have that much interesting stuff going for them. They're kind of just like the kids who were at your school, but honestly, they're side characters, if even, and they're kind of just there to fill out a role sheet. The Rangorn and the Herenian are two Tau Auxiliaries whose only trait seems to be that they are Tau Auxiliaries. Next up are the Vespids, or the Malcor in nerdy blue terms. I've always really liked the Vespid. Flying bug soldiers with green energy guns have been cool to me since Halo 2 when you mowed them down with that balcony machine gun in New Mombasa. The Vespid are a partially insectoid race that's a bit bigger than humans and have chitinous wings that apparently might function like jetpacks. They use these wings not only for flight, but also to emit ultrasonic vibrations to control their tech. They also have 6 eyes, which that's not just the flux on the Nikasar. Each set of eyes has a different function. The top sees ultraviolet light, the middle sees the human visible spectrum, and the bottom sees an infrared. Finally, the Vespid have a very complex language due to their unique mouth structures that is pretty much unintelligible to the Tau. This caused the Tau to have trouble recruiting the Vespid, and due to this failure of communication, the Vespid thought the Tau were a bunch of nonsensient doo-doo heads and were uncooperative. Luckily for the Tau, though, the Ethereals made a quote-unquote communication device that allowed the Vespid to communicate and also conveniently instilled the Vespid leaders with the righteous ideas of the greater good. Here, wear this hat. It'll help us communicate easier. The greater good is all that matters. Let's work together. This is my life and also my technology. Praise the greater good. Along with their speed and flight capabilities that make them good scouts in the Tau army, the Vespid also have pretty advanced tech. Most notably, their crystal technology that is operated using their wing noises. Their primary weapon is a neutron blaster, which blends Tau tech with their own crystal technology to shoot energy blasts from unstable crystals. And I feel like the Vespid could fit 2 stereotypes quite nicely. First off, they're that weird kid who's always spewing unintelligible nonsense, but he's actually pretty smart and athletic. And they're also that girl who constantly talks about the mystical energy within crystals and how she only buys crystal products on full moons so that her aura is enhanced or whatever the stupid star sign nonsense she has to say. Except in the Vespid's case, their crystals actually do have magic powers. So finally, let's end on a bang. A big bang because this last species is huge. The Vorg are huge kaiju-sized Xenos who usually are peaceful, but they aren't afraid to tussle with the muscle. These fellas, they don't have much lore, but what they do have is cool. Kaiju-sized aliens is enough reason for them to get a lot more love. These big boys are said to go head-to-head with Knights and maybe even Titans. Just imagine how cool a kaiju model would look next to the Tau battlesuits. It'd be like if in Pacific Rim, the kaiju and Jaegers teamed up to fight some Space Marines or something. And then obviously these guys fit the gentle giant stereotype perfectly, and if the Auxiliaries got a high school movie, the Vorg would probably have some big blindside energy. And so those are all the Tau Auxiliaries I could find. I think the allied species is a really cool concept, and it kind of reminds me of the Halo Covenant. It really sets them apart from the other factions since their specialists are fulfilled by different species. Or, at least in theory it does, since unfortunately the Tau only have models for 2 of their auxiliaries, which is pretty lame, but at least we have some cool descriptions. It would be really, really cool for the auxiliaries to get some rules in their own detachment for the Tau, because, like, mechs are cool, but so are psychic space bears and kaiju, so, you know, get on it, GW, my money's not going to spend itself. But anyways, let me know what you thought of the video, let me know if I missed anything or got something wrong. I'm sure someone out there will be disappointed I forgot to mention their favorite Xenos, the Glep Shit Glorbs, and their whole one sentence of lore. And if I did, I'm truly very, very sorry. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing to all your auxiliary species. Thanks. Next week, I think I might do something a little different and talk about more of the model aspect of 40K.